The first time I heard them whisper the word dementia connected to my name, it felt like ice water flooding my veins. Not concern, not worry, but a cold, hard plan. They were sitting barely 10 feet away, my own family, carving up my life like a cake they couldn't wait to devour, and they thought I was too far gone to even notice. "She seems comfortable enough," my nephew Carl muttered, his eyes flicking towards me on the sofa. I kept my breathing even, my eyes half closed, playing the part they'd cast for me. Brenda, my daughter-in-law, leaned in, her voice a venomous whisper coated in fake sugar. "Mark's almost there. He's terrified she'll have another episode, like forgetting the stove was on." Another lie, sharp and cruel. "Once the doctor signs off on the conservatorship, based on our detailed observations, it's ours, Carl. The house, the portfolio, everything we deserve. Severe dementia. Conservatorship. Stealing my assets under the guise of care." My mind, thankfully still sharp as a tack despite their narrative, reeled not just from the betrayal but from the sheer audacity. They underestimated me. They mistook stillness for absence, silence for incompetence. But in that moment, hearing their greedy, cruel plot unfold, something shifted inside me. Fear turned to ice, then to fire. They thought they were writing my final chapter. They had no idea I was about to start a whole new book. One where they were the villains and I held the pen. Before their whispers turned my home into hostile territory, my life was everything I'd worked for. Peaceful, independent, and comfortably mine. As a woman who'd recently blown out 68 candles on her birthday cake, retirement felt like a well-deserved reward. 40 years I'd spent navigating the complexities of financial analysis, a career demanding logic, precision, and foresight, skills they foolishly believed had deserted me. My beloved husband, Robert, had passed 5 years earlier, leaving a silence in our spacious home but also ensuring I was financially secure. His memory was a warmth, not a weakness. My days had a pleasant rhythm. Mornings often found me in my garden, coaxing stubborn roses into bloom or pruning the hydrangeas, the feel of the earth grounding me. Twice a week I volunteered at the local library, losing myself in the quiet sanctuary of books and the hushed reverence for knowledge. And yes, despite what some people were eager to believe, I actively managed my own investment portfolio online. Tracking the market, making calculated risks. It kept my mind sharp, engaged. The very suggestion of cognitive decline wasn't just insulting, it was absurd. My son Mark was the center of my world. A fundamentally decent man, but perhaps too easily swayed, lacking the firm spine needed to stand against a strong personality. And Brenda, his wife of 10 years, was certainly that. She presented a facade of perfect grooming and sugary smiles, but I'd long sensed an undercurrent of dissatisfaction, a hunger for more than their comfortable life provided. More luxury, more status, more money. My money, it seemed. Then there was Carl, my late sister's son. I'd tried to be a supportive figure after she passed, even financially backing a couple of his ill-fated business ideas. He possessed a surface charm that often masked a deep-seated resentment, a persistent feeling that life, and maybe I specifically, hadn't given him his due. His visits had become more frequent lately, always accompanied by unsolicited financial advice and eyes that scanned my belongings with unnerving calculation. Small signs, easily missed threads. I hadn't seen the web they were weaving until I heard their whispers that day. My settled life wasn't just stable, it was a target. The first tremor felt almost accidental, a hairline crack disguised as loving care. It happened after I tripped, my own fault really, over the corner of the living room rug while rushing to answer the phone in slippery socks. I caught myself on the doorframe, suffering nothing more than a bruised knee and a slightly wounded pride. But when Brenda called minutes later, her voice immediately escalated into high drama. "Eleanor, oh my goodness. Are you all right? Mark and I worry constantly about you in that big house alone. What if you'd fallen and couldn't get up?" Her sympathy felt manufactured, overly dramatic. I assured her I was perfectly fine, just clumsy. But the narrative had begun. A few days later, Mark echoed her script, his brow furrowed with genuine, if misplaced, concern. "Mom, Brenda told me about the fall. Seriously, are you okay? Maybe Maybe we should think about getting someone just to pop in help with errands? It stung that he believed her exaggerated version, but I gently deflected. Honestly, Mark, I'm fine. Just wasn't watching my step. Carl's visits intensified, often timed around lunch, bringing pastries as a Trojan horse for his probing questions. Aunt Eleanor, just thinking aloud, managing all these bills, the investments, it must be stressful. Why not simplify things? Let Mark or me have power of attorney access. Purely for emergencies, you understand. He'd say it casually, carefully buttering a scone, but his gaze was sharp, assessing my reaction. Each time I politely refused, stating clearly, "Thank you, Carl, but I'm perfectly capable of managing my own affairs." His smile never quite reached his eyes. Then the subtle memory games began. Insidious little tests designed to sow doubt. "Mom, don't you remember our chat about visiting the coast next weekend?" Brenda would ask brightly, knowing we'd never discussed it. When I'd say, "No, Brenda, we talked about the botanical gardens," she'd sigh dramatically, exchanging a loaded glance with Mark. "Oh dear. Are you sure, Eleanor? Maybe my memory's going." She'd laugh, implying the fault was mine. Carl played his part too. "Aunt Eleanor, you mentioned wanting to liquidate those tech stocks last week. Said the market made you nervous. An outright fabrication." "No, Carl," I corrected him firmly. "I specifically said I was holding them." He just chuckled that grating little chuckle. "All right, Auntie. If you say so." The condescension dripped from every word. It felt like they were subtly trying to rewrite my reality, chipping away at my confidence. The most chilling incident occurred during a family dinner at their house. I casually mentioned wanting to finally take that Alaskan cruise I'd always dreamed of. Brenda's fork clattered onto her plate. "Eleanor, darling, we talked about this, remember? Your doctor felt extensive travel might be too overwhelming for you right now." My blood ran cold. "What doctor? When did this conversation happen?" "I haven't discussed travel plans with any doctor, Brenda." She waved her hand dismissively, her smile tightening. "Oh, you must have forgotten. It was after your physical. Mark and I had a quick word with Dr. Adams afterwards, just sharing some observations. He agreed staying closer to home would be wise for a bit." "Sharing what observations?" "They'd spoken to my doctor behind my back?" "Lied to him." I looked at Mark, who suddenly found his mashed potatoes fascinating. Carl studied his wine glass with intense interest. A heavy knot formed in my stomach. This wasn't just meddling anymore. This was calculated deception. This was an attack. Why lie about something so specific, so verifiable? The question echoed long after dinner, leaving a residue of fear and burgeoning anger. Something sinister was unfolding, and I was the target. That calculated deception quickly escalated into a campaign of subtle sabotage and psychological warfare. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts, each one designed to make me doubt myself and appear incompetent to others. Brenda's helpfulness became suffocating. She'd rearrange my kitchen cupboards, claiming I couldn't possibly reach the top shelves anymore. My carefully curated bookshelves would be tidied, books ending up on the wrong shelves or even upside down. "Oh, Eleanor, things get so muddled, don't they?" She'd sigh, patting my arm with false sympathy. Then came the missing papers. Important documents, recent bank statements, investment summaries, even the title to my car, would vanish from my office filing cabinet. Days later, Brenda would discover them in bizarre places. "Look what I found tucked inside the recipe box," she'd exclaim, holding up my latest portfolio statement. "You really must be more careful, dear." The implication was clear. I was losing things, becoming careless, incapable. Carl became relentless about my finances. He'd call frequently, asking pointed questions about specific transactions or account balances, information he shouldn't have known unless he or Brenda had been snooping through mail or those misplaced papers. He presented complex charts showing market volatility, speaking slowly as if explaining to a child. "See, Aunt Eleanor? It's just too complex now. Let me take this burden off your shoulders. Just give me temporary online access. I can set up alerts, protect you from losses." The pressure was constant, a tightening vice. My refusals were met with increasingly exasperated sighs and pitying looks exchanged with Brenda. The gaslighting intensified, particularly in front of others. We attended a neighborhood barbecue and I was chatting with Mrs. Gable from next door about my prize-winning roses. Brenda glided over, putting an arm around my shoulder. "Eleanor, darling, weren't you telling me yesterday you thought they were lilies? Your memory for flower names is getting a little jumbled, isn't it?" she said sweetly, loud enough for Mrs. Gable to hear. I stared at her, speechless at the bald-faced lie. Mrs. Gable offered me a strained, sympathetic smile that made my blood boil. They weren't just trying to convince me I was losing it. They were actively poisoning the well with everyone I knew. Small, personal items started disappearing more frequently. A silver locket containing Robert's picture vanished from my nightstand. A favorite cashmere scarf wasn't in the closet. When I mentioned the locket, fighting back tears, Brenda suggested I'd likely put it away for safekeeping and simply forgotten where. "It happens, Eleanor. Don't fret," she soothed, her eyes cold. The isolation deepened. Phone calls from friends became less frequent. When I did speak to them, their questions often echoed Brenda's concerns. Had she been calling them too? Planting seeds of doubt about my well-being? For fleeting moments, exhaustion and the relentless undermining made me wonder. Could they be right? Was I truly slipping? But then the analytical part of my brain, the part honed by decades of numbers and logic, would roar back. Oh, this was manipulation. This was deliberate. This was war. The anger solidified into resolve. Hidden beneath a loose floorboard in my bedroom closet, I started my secret journal. Every lie, every missing item, every condescending remark, every manipulative act, meticulously dated and detailed. They thought they were breaking me down. They were actually forging my armor. The whispers soon became a roar. Brenda and Carl abandoned subtlety and launched a full-scale offensive, clearly believing I was too far gone to fight back effectively. The calls to distant relatives intensified, becoming more alarming. My cousin Michael called from Florida, his voice strained. "Eleanor, Brenda reached out. She mentioned you had a little incident? Getting lost on your way back from the library? Are you sure you should be driving?" I hadn't been lost. I'd taken a detour to admire the autumn leaves. The deliberate twisting of innocent events into proof of decline was terrifyingly effective. Brenda then orchestrated the doctor's appointment from hell. She must have bombarded Dr. Adams' office with calls beforehand, filling his ears with fabricated stories of my supposed confusion, dangerous memory lapses, and near accidents. When I walked into his office, the atmosphere was thick with prejudgment. He spoke to me slowly, loudly, using simplistic language. He administered basic memory tests, recalling word lists, drawing a clock face, things I aced easily, but his expression remained skeptical. "Well, Eleanor," he said gently, "you did well today, but based on the concerns your family raised, perhaps some more thorough cognitive testing would give us peace of mind? And maybe we should discuss driving limitations?" He was already treating their lies as fact. I felt cornered, my reality being systematically dismantled by their campaign. Mark became their pawn, his anxiety weaponized against me. One evening he came over alone, looking pale and stressed. "Mom," he began hesitantly, avoiding my eyes, "Brenda showed me this brochure for a really nice assisted living place nearby. Oakwood Hills. Looks lovely. They have activities, round-the-clock care. You wouldn't have to worry about anything." The words hung in the air, heavy with betrayal. He wasn't just suggesting it, he was selling it. He'd bought into their narrative. "Mark," I asked quietly, "do you think I need assisted living?" He stammered, "Well, Brenda and Carl think maybe it's for the best, safer." He couldn't even say it was his own opinion. My heart ached, not just with anger, but with profound disappointment in my own son. The final, unequivocal declaration of war came from Carl. He arrived unannounced one Tuesday afternoon, Brenda hovering behind him like a shadow. He placed a thick folder on my coffee table with a decisive thud. "Aunt Eleanor," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument, "we can't wait any longer. Your safety is paramount. Mark and I have consulted an attorney. These documents initiate the process for conservatorship." He tapped the folder. "It assigns control of your financial and medical decisions to Mark and myself. It's the only way to protect your assets and ensure you get the care you need." It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't a discussion. It was an ultimatum. Sign away my autonomy or they would take it by force through the courts, using the very doctor they had manipulated against me. There it was. The endgame laid bare. Declare me incompetent. Seize control. Lock me away. The sheer, naked greed and cruelty of it stole my breath for a second. Then a wave of cold, hard fury washed over me. They saw a confused old woman, an easy mark. They had critically misjudged their opponent. My mind, the very tool they sought to discredit, snapped into high gear. The analyst in me took over. They wanted a war? They would get one. But it wouldn't be fought on their terms. It would be fought on mine. And I already had my secret weapon in mind. My counterattack began with a strategic retreat. I needed them complacent, utterly convinced of their impending victory. So I started subtly leaning into the role they'd crafted for me. I'd pause mid-sentence, pretending to lose my train of thought. I'd ask Brenda to double-check the lock on the front door, sighing about how forgetful I was becoming. I even allowed Carl to explain a simple utility bill, nodding vaguely and thanking him for making it clearer. Their smug exchanges of knowing glances were almost physically painful to witness, but I kept my eyes on the prize. During one of their visits, I sighed dramatically. I said, letting my voice tremble slightly, this big house. It does feel rather empty sometimes. And managing everything alone. Perhaps you have a point. I saw Brenda and Carl exchange a look of pure triumph. Mark just looked relieved. Not, I added quickly, seeing the assisted living gleam in Brenda's eye, that I'm ready for one of those places. Heavens no. But maybe some company during the day? Someone to help with little chores, errands? Just for companionship, really. Brenda immediately volunteered to find someone suitable through her network. Oh no, dear, I said gently, waving a dismissive hand. That's very kind, but I'd feel more comfortable choosing someone myself. An old bridge partner mentioned a wonderful private nursing agency. Very discreet, very professional. Let me make the arrangements. It'll give me a sense of control. They readily agreed, likely assuming any aide I hired would be easily manipulated or dismissed once the conservatorship was finalized. They thought they were letting me have a small, meaningless victory. They had no idea they were greenlighting my Trojan horse. My bridge partner's recommendation was real. I contacted the agency immediately, requesting an urgent, confidential consultation away from my home. I explained the situation clearly, emphasizing the gaslighting, the financial motives, and the imminent threat of forced conservatorship. I wasn't just looking for a nurse. I needed an operative, someone intelligent, observant, and utterly trustworthy. After interviewing 3 candidates, I met Sarah. She was in her late 30s with watchful, intelligent eyes and an air of quiet competence. Her calm demeanor felt like bedrock. I decided to trust my instincts and laid everything on the table. The whispers, the missing items, the lies to my doctor, the conservatorship papers Carl had brazenly shown me. I explained I needed more than care, I needed proof. Sarah listened without interruption, her expression hardening almost imperceptibly. When I finished, she met my gaze directly. Mrs. Davison, she said, her voice low and steady, what your family is attempting is not just morally reprehensible, it's illegal. Elder abuse takes many forms, and this is classic financial exploitation wrapped in false concern. I've seen variations of this before. If you hire me, I will be your aide, yes. But I will also be your witness. I can document everything. A fierce sense of relief washed over me. I wasn't alone in this fight anymore. We formulated a plan immediately. Sarah would be hired as my companion aide, presenting herself as quiet, slightly reserved, and focused solely on my basic needs. Someone easy for Brenda and Carl to ignore. But Sarah came prepared. We acquired discreet recording devices, a pen she always carried, a simple pendant she wore, a small recorder tucked into her medical bag. More importantly, we installed tiny, almost invisible motion-activated cameras covering the main living areas. The living room where they held their whispered conferences, my office where papers went missing, and the hallway overlooking the front door. Sarah's mission was simple: observe, listen, record, and log. Every incriminating conversation, every instance of manipulation, every sly attempt at theft, all time-stamped, dated, and detailed in a secure digital file. She was my silent guardian, my secret weapon, gathering the ammunition I needed. They saw her pouring tea or fluffing pillows. They never saw the meticulous chronicler of their cruelty, the architect of their downfall, hiding in plain sight. The trap was meticulously baited. Now we just had to wait for the rats to walk in. The waiting was the hardest part. Playing the frail, slightly confused victim while inwardly seething required every ounce of my self-control. Brenda grew bolder, openly rifling through my desk drawers while Sarah quietly observed from the doorway. "Just looking for that elusive phone bill, Eleanor," she'd trill, unaware Sarah was noting the exact time and the fact she palmed a small silver picture frame. Carl would pace the living room, talking loudly on his mobile, discussing with someone how the legal process was moving forward and how Auntie's assets would soon be properly managed. Every word captured by the recorder in Sarah's pen resting innocently on the side table. They even coached Mark in front of me, thinking I wouldn't grasp the nuances. "Mark, when we talk to the lawyer again, make sure you emphasize how she gets agitated in the evenings," Brenda instructed, squeezing his arm. "And mention the time she couldn't remember her own address." Another lie. Sarah diligently typed notes on her phone, disguised as checking messages. After nearly 3 weeks, Sarah gave me the nod. The evidence file was damning, comprehensive, and undeniable. It was time to spring the trap. My hand was surprisingly steady as I dialed Mark's number. "Mark, Brenda, Carl. I was hoping the 3 of you could come over tomorrow evening. Say around 6? I've been doing some thinking about my future, and I need to discuss some decisions with you all." I injected a note of weary resignation into my voice. Predictably, they agreed instantly, their eagerness palpable. Brenda even chirped, "We can bring the conservatorship forms, dear, just to have them ready if you decide." Oh, I had decided, all right. My next call was to Arthur Jensen, my longtime lawyer and trusted friend. "Arthur, I need you at my house tomorrow, 6 p.m. sharp. Please come as a friend initially, just dropping by. But be prepared for fireworks. It's time." The following evening, the air in my living room crackled with their anticipation. Mark looked deeply uncomfortable, gnawing on his lower lip. Brenda radiated smug confidence, dressed immaculately as always. Carl clutched his briefcase, practically vibrating with suppressed excitement. Sarah moved silently, offering refreshments, the picture of unobtrusive service. When Arthur arrived, I greeted him warmly, introducing him as an old friend joining us for a chat. Brenda and Carl exchanged a fleeting look, mild annoyance perhaps, but no real suspicion. I let them begin their carefully rehearsed spiel. Brenda took the floor, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "Eleanor, darling, we're so glad you wanted to talk. We've just been so worried sick about you. We love you dearly, and all we want is to ensure you're safe and cared for." Carl placed his briefcase on the coffee table with faux solemnity. "Exactly, Aunt Eleanor. It's become clear that managing everything, the house, the finances, it's just too much of a burden for you now. After consulting with professionals, doctors, lawyers, they all agree. This paperwork," he tapped the thick folder inside, "simply allows us, Mark and me, to step in. Handle the complexities. Protect your legacy. It's the responsible solution." Mark mumbled agreement, staring intently at the rug pattern. "Mom, we want you to relax. Let us take care of things." I let the silence stretch, meeting each of their expectant gazes. Then I sat up straighter, the weariness vanishing from my voice, replaced by cold, clear steel. "Relax." "Oh, I haven't been relaxing, Mark. I've been documenting." The sudden shift threw them. Brenda's smile froze. Carl's confident posture stiffened. "You see," I continued, my voice level but sharp, "I know exactly what you 3 have been plotting." Brenda attempted a scoff. "Eleanor, please, you're getting agitated, confused." "Am I confused, Brenda?" I cut her off sharply. "Am I confused about you calling my cousins with fabricated stories about me wandering off? Am I confused about you coaching Mark, right here in this room, on how to lie to Dr. Adams about my mental state to support your fraudulent claims?" Her face went chalky beneath her makeup. "Am I confused, Carl?" I pivoted, pinning him with my gaze, "about your phone calls boasting about how my situation would solve your financial woes? Or about these?" I gestured contemptuously towards his briefcase, These conservatorship papers you planned to bully me into signing? He visibly shrank back, his Adam's apple bobbing. And Mark, my voice softened, but the disappointment was sharp. Am I confused about you standing by, letting them manipulate you, letting them convince you that your own mother was losing her mind? He finally looked up, shame and horror warring in his expression. Brenda rallied weakly. This is paranoia. You're delusional. This just proves we're right. Does it? I asked icily. Arthur, perhaps it's time you introduced yourself properly. Arthur rose smoothly. Arthur Jensen. I have been Mrs. Davison's attorney for over 30 years. Brenda gasped audibly. Carl looked like he might faint. And this, I said, indicating Sarah, who stepped forward, her quiet demeanor replaced by crisp professionalism, is Sarah Jenkins, a certified nursing assistant with specialized training in elder care monitoring. For the past 20 days, under my direction, she has been meticulously documenting your actions and conversations within this house. Sarah calmly placed a tablet on the coffee table. I have time-stamped audio recordings, she announced, her voice clear and firm. Detailed digital logs of conversations regarding the plan to obtain conservatorship under false pretenses. Photographic evidence. Records of missing items, including the silver locket taken from the nightstand last Thursday, Brenda, and the brooch you pocketed last Tuesday at precisely 2:15 p.m. while pretending to tidy. Shall I play the audio file of you and Carl discussing how to pressure Dr. Adams? Brenda choked back a sob. Carl looked physically ill, sweat beading on his forehead. Mark stared at Brenda, his face a mask of dawning horror and disgust. That won't be necessary just yet, Sarah, I said, my voice cutting through the thick tension. You came here tonight expecting a frail, confused old woman to surrender her life to your greed. Instead, you face concrete evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud, potential theft, and significant elder abuse. I leaned forward, locking eyes with Brenda and Carl. Arthur has prepared some documents of his own. You have two options. Option 1. You return every single item. You sign legally binding agreements, right now, renouncing any current or future claim over my assets or healthcare decisions, effective immediately. You agree, under penalty of severe legal consequences, to cease all contact with me forever. And you walk out of here and pray that I choose not to forward Sarah's evidence file to the district attorney. Option 2. I paused, letting the weight settle. Arthur makes that call first thing tomorrow morning. We pursue this through official channels. The evidence is overwhelming. Think of the public exposure, the criminal charges, the complete ruin. The choice was stark. The power dynamic had irrevocably shifted. The satisfaction wasn't just sweet, it was absolute. The confrontation shattered their scheme instantly. Faced with irrefutable evidence compiled by Sarah and the cold, hard legal realities presented by Arthur, Brenda and Carl collapsed like cheap suits. Fear replaced greed. There were no more arguments, only frantic compliance. Arthur calmly presented the agreements he had drafted, legally tight renunciations, confidentiality clauses, and stark acknowledgments of their deceitful actions. Brenda, her perfect facade utterly destroyed, signed with a hand that shook so badly the signature was barely legible. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she avoided Mark's accusing gaze. Carl, sweating and pale, scribbled his name and practically fled the house, briefcase forgotten in his haste. It was returned, along with the missing locket and other misplaced items, via a courier service the next day. No note, just the objects silently testifying to their guilt. Mark remained, slumped on the sofa, looking utterly broken. The apologies poured out of him, interspersed with choked explanations of how Brenda and Carl had systematically played on his anxieties, twisted his love for me into a tool for their own gain. I should have seen it, Mom, he wept, finally meeting my eyes. I should have trusted you, defended you. I let them do this. I am so truly sorry. Betrayal leaves deep scars, especially from your own child. I told Mark that forgiveness wasn't a switch I could flip. Rebuilding trust, if possible at all, would be a long and arduous process. Our relationship is irrevocably altered, tainted by his failure to stand up for me, but he is still my son. We are navigating a new, tentative path, marked by necessary boundaries and his ongoing efforts to prove his remorse is genuine. Predictably, his marriage to Brenda imploded within weeks of the confrontation. The last I heard, she had moved back in with her parents, and Carl had vanished, reportedly moving several states away to escape the wreckage. As for me, the moment they walked out, defeated, a profound sense of peace settled over me. It wasn't just relief, it was vindication. It was the quiet, powerful feeling of reclaiming control. I immediately had Arthur reinforce my will and estate plan, adding extra layers of protection. Sarah received my deepest gratitude and a substantial bonus for her courage and professionalism. She was instrumental in my victory. Life settled back into its rhythm, but it's a different rhythm now. My garden still blooms, the library still offers solace, and my investments continue to perform well under my own careful management. But I move through the world with eyes wide open, aware of the potential for darkness hidden behind smiling faces. The ordeal taught me brutal lessons about vulnerability and the poison of greed, even within families. But it also unearthed a core of strength within me I hadn't fully realized I possessed. They tried to label me as diminished, fading, incompetent. Instead, they forced me to prove just how sharp, resilient, and capable I truly am. Standing here now, secure in my home, my mind clear, my future firmly in my own hands, that enduring peace, that quiet strength, that is the ultimate, most satisfying revenge.